everybody, Coach Hughes here from the Be Best You podcast. With the idea of being a leader, you have to be the best version of yourself. I'm really excited to have Brant Menswar here today, right?
You
Did I
did.
pronounce that correctly? Right, Brant? I love that. It's a different first name. I want to make sure I get that. And I was able to kind of come across you from a mutual friend and you're one of your business partners, Jim Knight, uh, bona fide rock
He's
star
a
as
good
you are
man.
as well.
He's a good man. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And definitely at the end here, I'll share some of the resources that both of you guys have in
Sure.
addition to your books, but also you have the podcast, which I mean, you guys are have it, polished. I'm still kind of in the, the learning
I get it.
phase,
We
right?
all have to start.
But I did. Yeah. And I listened to a lot of yours and I just love how you just guys just have fun and you have a conversation,
That's it.
you know,
Organic, man. That's all.
with a lot
People
of the
just
people.
want to feel like they are listening in to a conversation that maybe they shouldn't be. If you can present that
Yeah.
like they're getting some little tasty little nugget there, then you're in good shape.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. So yeah, so your book here, which is
Hmm.
awesome, called Black Sheep. I did get to read it, and I got to listen to it while I was doing some of my walks here during my breaks, and a lot of laughs in there, and some great stories. And you kind of take a different approach. I don't want to say maybe it's not a different approach, a unique approach to a couple, topics that are very popular out there today. One of them, purpose, and the other one is
Hmm.
core values, how they kind of come together. And then the last part of it, which was kind of interesting, because I was very interested in the black sheep. In my mind, was the unique one, and you kind of clarify that actually in your book, where well, a lot of people think it's the person who's the outcast, the person who's on the fringe, and you do a nice job at really bringing that back in, and actually no, it's not that person that's so different. It's but you have to have your black sheep. So if maybe to start off there, so what the
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
itself, Black Sheep, can you explain a little bit about that and what the idea behind that
Sure.
was?
I was in my late 40s, 47, before someone actually took the time to explain to me why black sheep are not valued like the rest of the flock by farmers in the real world. Like, what's the real reason? And the real reason is the reason that farmers do not value them the same is because a black sheep's wool cannot be dyed. So every black sheep, in effect, is 100% authentically original, and it can't be shaped or molded into something that it wasn't meant to be. So, you know, like you, I always thought of black sheep as being an outcast, but in reality, the black sheep are the true originals, the ones who actually aren't trying to be anything other than who they were meant to be. And so that led me to this idea that we all possess what I call a flock of five black sheep values. And these are those deeply held personal core values that no matter how much someone wants to try to influence you or twist you, they simply won't be moved like a black sheep's wool. And that is sort of the premise of the book. How do you find your flock of five? And once you find them, how do you prove that they're real? And then once you've proven they're real, how do you program them into your day to appear on purpose in a regular fashion? That's the idea.
Yeah, no, and it's great too because in the line of work that I do now in coaching, referring to the core values as kind of the cornerstones of the foundation of the team that you're trying to build, the culture, which doesn't just it's not just work; it's also at home. Core values at home. You live by those sets of core values and your compass, if you will, as we refer to it, is here as well. And I love it. And the book does a great job at, well, not only that, but you also have some awesome resources in there to help people kind of discover it, go through the process of a questionnaire or some worksheets in there in the
Yeah,
book that you can get from your website,
you
which
bet.
is very helpful. Um, but the idea of when you're talking to new people that are moving into new leadership thing role, what I'll
Mhm.
usually ask them is kind of a leading question, like, how many of you guys wish everybody worked as hard as you did and uh, had the same passion as you do about whatever? And everybody raised their hand. I said, all right, well, are you ordinary or are you an extraordinary? And they look at me funny and they go, well, I'm I'm kind of extraordinary. I said, but if you want everybody to be like you, by definition, now you're ordinary.
Yeah.
So I kind of love, that's what I loved about the black sheep, your uniqueness. So can you explain a little bit about that? Like
Yeah,
discovering your uniqueness, your purpose, if you will.
sure. Well, around the idea and the concept of leadership, especially, is so McKinsey just came out with this report a few weeks ago that says that if you can help people find their purpose at work, they are 6.5 times more resilient. They
Oh,
are 4 times healthier. They are 6 times likely to stick around. They're 1.5 times more likely to go above and beyond what you ask them to do. So the question becomes, how do you do that? How do you get somebody to find their purpose? uh, it, the challenge starts with the word find, right? Because we don't, that's the biggest misnomer around purpose, at least in my research, is that people think that purpose is something we find. It is not. It is something we choose. So how do you choose a purpose? Well, in order to choose a purpose, you have to first discover what those non negotiable values are because your purpose is the actual activation of your non negotiables. Now, when you ask people what their core values are, in
mm,
my experience, it's less than 1% that
yeah,
truly know, less than 1%.
yeah,
And so people have an idea of what's really important to them, no question. And they can rattle off, many, many, many things that are incredibly important to them. And we know that, as you mentioned, there are some resources on the website. There's an actual online assessment that you can take, and it helps you get to what you think your initial flock of 5 black sheep values are. And what we know over the course of the last 6 months or so, we've had over 5,000 people take that assessment,
mm,
and the average person selects at least 30 different values that they deem really important in their lives. And that's where the beginning of the mountain starts, is that if you tell yourself there are 30 things that are non-negotiable values, then you're going to try to honor those values on a regular basis, and you're going to fail because it's impossible to honor
yeah,
that many things every single day. So what we have to do is we have to filter those because people don't really understand what non-negotiable means. They
mhm,
have an idea of what they think it means, but the truth is that non-negotiable means no.
yeah,
And so sometimes, people will put things like prosperity as one of their non-negotiable values.
mm,
And my immediate question is, do you ever find yourself or put yourself in positions that aren't prosperous? And the answer is always yes. And my answer is always, then it's not a non-negotiable.
right,
It is a very strong preference, but it is not a non-negotiable because non-negotiable means no. And so that's the work, I believe, of a true leader, is to figure this stuff out for yourself first. And then you have to help the people that you lead figure this out as well. Because the number one mistake that every company makes is they take new employees, they hand them a group of values that is the organizational values, and they say, I want you to adopt these like they're your own.
mm,
That doesn't work. It will
yeah,
never work. You know why? Because they don't care about what you care about. They care about what they care about. So rather than try to force behavior change, I equate it to, are you a dog lover?
I am now. I fought it for a long time, but my wife and I got a dog about a year and a half ago, and I
Okay.
am truly a dog lover now.
Okay, so I myself, I don't have dogs. I had a dog when I was a kid, but I've never had a dog as an adult, and I equate it to this. Uh, One of your buddies says, "Hey, I'm going away for the weekend. Can you watch my dog? Just come over to the house, let him out, walk him a little bit, let him go to the bathroom, feed him." You're like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do it." And about 2 days in, you're going, why did I say yes to this? This
Yeah,
isn't even my dog. I am following this dog around. I'm picking its crap up with my own hands. I'm doing all of these things that I really don't want to do, but I'm doing it anyways because I love my friend and I want to help them out. And that's what I'm going to do. But that's the same approach that every company takes when it comes to their employees. You are asking them to follow you around and pick up your crap. And it's not, excuse me, it's not their stuff. It's not the things they care about. What
mm,
we need to do is rather than handing a group of values that aren't theirs and asking them to adopt them, we have to build bridges that allow them to use what matters most to them to amplify what matters most to us. And when we do that, we get way stronger levels of commitment and we get unique contribution, because that at the end of the day is why you want to discover what these non-negotiables are, is because if you don't, then every contribution you make is on accident or by luck.
Mm.
It's not what you bring to the table. It's a reflection of what somebody else brings to the table. So you have to figure this stuff out for yourself so that when you come and show up to work, you're bringing unique contribution through those non-negotiable values on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of eliminated the word um, interviews here, and we talk about more tryouts. And a lot of people will hire somebody off the first interview, and we talk about multiple interviews are the way to go, so you can really kind of have a discussion with somebody and hear their point of view. And we have a business associate here that they won their franchisee of the year for their company. And what the first 2 years when they first opened up their businesses, they were doing pretty well and they were focusing on the numbers and the profit stuff. And they're guys that are pretty strong in their faith as well. And they said, you know what, we need some guiding principles. And they took about, I think about 8 months, if I'm not mistaken, and they came up with their 8 core values. And then they dropped them down to 6. And I think they have 5 right now, or their 5 core values. But what they advise us on, and a lot of the people that I bring in front of them, is that once they hired, trained, coached, and then let people go off of those 5 core values, they literally rocketed to the stratosphere. And a lot of people that they speak to believe it, but you can see them kind of look up in the air like, okay, I get it, but really, I mean, is that what made you guys successful? And they'll both tell you that, yeah, I mean, those guiding principles, those core values really become the the compass, if you will. Um,
Agreed. The question becomes, how do you get somebody to care about those
right.
things? And it's through what they care about is how you get them to care, right? It's you're basically saying to employees, um, here are our favorite things. These are the things that we care most about. And you know, it's like telling you, hey, look, my favorite movie is Happy Gilmore. If you read the book, you know that, right? And so if I come to you and I say, hey, my favorite movie is Happy Gilmore, and you think Happy Gilmore is the biggest piece of poo movie that you've ever seen,
Yeah, yeah.
it's going to be hard for us to find alignment if that's
Yep.
not your cup of tea, right? But if I can use my favorite to amplify your favorite, it gives us a way to connect in an incredibly powerful way that we're both using our superpowers, right?
Mm.
It's I had this conversation the other day with someone. Um, it's to me discovering your black sheep values. It would be like if you never discovered what your black sheep values are. It's like being a superhero your whole life and never knowing what your superpower is.
Mm.
What if somebody came to you today and said, "Look, for the last 50 years, you have been a superhero." And you're like, "What? What do you mean?" No, you're a superhero. You have superpowers. The first question you're going to ask is, well, what are my powers?
Mm.
Well, your powers are those unchangeable, undiable, 100% authentic black sheep values that are yours and only yours. They are your superpowers, and you've never taken the time to acknowledge what they actually are. And that's where most of us find ourselves, whether we are 25 or 85 years old.
Yeah. Probably 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, I went through a difficult time, divorce, and was my 40s, maybe early 40s, and was looking for my why, probably midlife crisis part of my life. And came across a couple things. Eric Chester wrote a book called Generation Y, which had to do with the millennial generation. And I started chasing that rabbit hole a little bit and kind of learning about this whole millennial generation and the fact that they wanted to know why. And then I came across Simon Sinek, in that famous TED talk that he did.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how you would kind of refer to that a little bit. When Sinek talks about the circle, golden circle, start with why, what, and then, or the how, then the what.
Yeah.
you kind of flip it around a little bit, and I like your spin on it. Can you kind of maybe lay that out a little bit? How your mindset to that whole idea of why and purpose,
Sure. So I want to say this straight up. I think Simon Sinek is a brilliant man, and
right?
he's done brilliant work. However, I wish that his book Start with Why had an asterisk on the cover,
Yeah,
because it start with why if your why is right. If your why is wrong, you end up in trouble, and that's where most of people find themselves if they think they can start with why. You can't start with why. It is impossible to start with why and find alignment. You have to start with what.
mm,
What are your non negotiable core values? Because your why is literally the activation of those things. So, what do I mean by that? So, my black sheep, my flock, right, is creativity, hope, impact, empathy, family, and authenticity. We can coach. We could talk to all the mathletes out there listening right now who know
yeah,
I gave you six. I know. I know there's an
yeah,
extra in there. I was a rock star for 20 years. We do everything to excess. I needed one more for me, and
yeah,
it's not unusual to have one more or one less, right? And so those are my flock: creativity, hope, impact, empathy, family, authenticity. So how does that factor into my purpose? Well, my purpose is to creatively impact others by authentically providing hope.
mm,
That is why I get up every single day. It is the only thing I choose to accomplish on a daily basis. So if it sounds familiar, it's because it's laden with these non negotiable values.
mhm,
That's what it is, to creatively impact others by authentically providing hope. You are literally listening to my non negotiable values within my purpose. I chose that purpose as an amplification of the things that matter most to me. So my what and my why are
mm,
aligned. So when your what and your why are aligned, it makes you incredibly resilient and adaptable for how you choose to live out that purpose.
yeah,
People think that our values and our purpose changes. That is not correct. The science does not support that. In fact, by the time we're in our early 20s, our core values are pretty much etched in stone. And outside of a catastrophic event in your life, they rarely change.
yeah,
The people who think they change, one of two things is typically happening. They are confusing mission with purpose,
mhm,
is number one, or they never figured out what their values were in the first place. Remember, I told you the average person selects 30 plus things.
yeah,
And so they simply picked one of the wrong things that was in the right family of values, but they didn't land on the actual value that was theirs,
mm,
just a related value to the one that's non negotiable. And so they've lived their life. The longer that we live, the better clarity starts to come from just living our lives that we know, well, maybe it's not this and maybe it's not that. And that's why people go, well, in my 40s I cared about different things than in my 20s. That's BS. That is
yeah.
not true. You care about the same things. How you choose to honor those things have most certainly changed, but those things in and of themselves have not.
Now I love you. So you have your non-negotiables, and then mission statement or value statement is another thing that's buzzword out there that you see everywhere. Is it fair to say that your was that a mission statement that you would put together when you have
That's a
your
purpose statement.
a purpose statement? Okay, so I like that. So you have mission statement, value statement. I like this. So a purpose statement is another way of looking at that. And I'm a visual learner as well, so
Yeah.
the circle thing worked really well for me. So if you're going to parallel the what and the why,
Mm.
how would you maybe draw that out or describe that if you would for a
Yeah.
visual type of learner?
Well, when I do that, I at the top of a page, I always write the three things. I write what to the left, I write
Okay,
why in the middle, and I
okay,
write how to the right. And it's linear from left to right. It is a linear progression. So
okay.
you start with the what, that creates your why. And
Mhm.
once you have that why, your how is going to change
Yeah.
with every person, with every interaction, with every opportunity. It's at the end, at the very last part of the book is about once you've figured out what your what is and you've chosen your why and there's alignment between those two, you have to be deliberate with your intention. You have to now take these black sheep values and literally write them into your calendar
Mm.
so that you are choosing which values need to show up to give you the maximum impact of every interaction that you have throughout the day. And that is how you start to live your life on purpose. And that is one of the things that the book talks about is I believe the phrase on purpose is one of the most misused phrases in the English language.
Yeah.
People use on purpose to say they're being intentional, but in fact what I want them to think about when they hear the phrase on purpose is you're doing something in alignment with your purpose. You're not doing something intentionally, you're doing something in alignment with your purpose.
Mm.
So if you've never discovered and have that purpose statement written for your life, you can't do anything on purpose.
Yeah. On purpose. Instead, now you with purpose
Yeah.
is, coaching. My dad was a coach. That's kind of what my nickname, coach. I love everything about coaching and teaching. And, while they're similar, there's some differences there as well. And one of the things, one of my slides I use is if you can, create the want and communicate and connect the why, the how takes care of itself. Um, and as a coach, at the level that I want to coach at, I don't want to be a babysitter. I want to make sure that the player or the person I'm going to teach or coach is there because they want to be there.
Mhm.
And if their want doesn't connect with why they're there,
Mhm.
so then the how becomes really difficult. Now you're fighting that person the whole time. Um,
100%.
why, we'll ask the three why question. Why do you need a job? Well, I need to pay my bills. Well,
Yeah.
why do you have to pay your bills? Well, because I got to feed my family. I'm like, well, that's why you need the job. You
Right.
don't need a job to pay your bills.
Right.
It's just an interesting, I love the on purpose or with purpose.
Yeah.
um it's a big part of, especially leaders. And no one's going to follow a leader if they don't know where they're going. um, and a lot of leaders that or put in a position of leadership.
Yeah.
What I work with is I work with a lot of people that progress up the ladder of responsibility into a position of leadership, and then they think they're a leader when they're just in that position,
Yeah.
and they're they're directionless. They don't really know where they're going. They just keep moving forward. And I think that's where we have found these core values, and I love it, the purpose statement. I like that a lot better than, like a mission statement. You heard it. And then it was, a gentleman wrote Culture Engine. It's the
Yeah.
first time I heard of, uh, um, uh, a values statement, which I thought was very interesting. But I like, the purpose statement to me is even more, you
Purpose
know,
statement is why you need to get up every day. I mean, that
yeah,
without a purpose statement, you're winging it, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. For me, I get the idea of a mission statement, but
yeah,
missions change. If you only have one mission, you're going to be in trouble as an organization. If you're
true.
only so you either succeed or fail. There's nothing left. So you have to understand that it's so much more important to drill down on these values that are your non-negotiables, not things that are just merely important, because you can have things that are incredibly important distractions.
Mhm.
um, you have to get to those non-negotiables because those are the things that separate you from everybody else, right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of times, when I work with organizations and help them through how do we build bridges between employee values and organizational values, right? That's the
Mhm.
majority of the work that I do. And so one of the things that we do right up front is we look at the organizational values.
Mhm.
And what I try to get them to understand is that these organizational values are like your company's hit songs.
Mhm.
That's how I need you to think about these things. And so
Mhm.
if they're your company's hit songs, you have to ask yourself, what makes a song a hit? And so there's really only two things that make a song a hit, right?
Mhm.
So number one is the songwriter's responsibility. So to me, that's leadership's responsibility. And that is you have to connect the head and the heart.
Mhm.
If songwriters connect the head and the heart, it engages our limbic brain. Our limbic brain is where all of our emotional long-term memory is stored. It's literally the reason why you remember song lyrics.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, if you can sit here and tell me the lyrics to your favorite song, and I say, give me your company's 5 core values. I promise you, the majority of your organization is going to go, I think they don't own them like their own favorite song. And the
Yeah.
reason is because you haven't connected the head and the heart. So if you list something like transparency, that's great, but it
Mm.
is not engaging my heart in any way, shape, or form. So I know what transparency in my head means, but in the subtext of that, you better be really specific as to what you mean when you say transparency and engage myself through my heart, through my emotions, through the things I care about. Otherwise, I'm never going to remember it. So that's step one, right? You got to have the head and the heart connect.
Love
Step
that.
two, step two is all about frequency. How often do you hear the song? If you've ever been in a car and you've been in the car long enough to hear the same song played twice on the same radio station, there's a reason that you've heard that song played twice in that time span is because they know how often you need to hear something in order for it to truly be a hit.
Mm.
And in this country, a hit song is played at least 10,000 times a week, right? So what that breaks down to is once every 3 to 4 hours in every market in the United States. That's how that breaks down. That's why you hear the same song twice in the car, right?
Yeah.
And so if we know that and we know it works, we have decades and decades and decades of proof. My question to every organization I work with is does your organization, do your employees experience, feel, however, one of these values or more once every 3 to 4 hours at work? If the answer is no, it will never be a hit.
Mm.
Take it off the list. It's not going to resonate. So you have got to have those two things working, in harmony with each other if you want these things to truly resonate throughout your organization. And so once you have those two things done, you've got your head and your heart driving things. Yes, that's fantastic. You are providing opportunities for people to engage with those values once every 3 to 4 hours every single day.
Mm.
That's the magic formula to having a culture that thrives, that is actually giving people opportunities to take what matters most to them and engage those things. But if you don't do it, you end up with people sitting there going, I have all these things that I can bring to the table that are uniquely me, but I
Mm.
have no idea how to get to where I need to go to because you're an island. You're an island unless you do these things.
Right.
And when you start to do these things, you create bridges which allow people to get to you. But
Mm.
without those, people just sit around going, I've got a wealth of talent that I'm willing and want to give to you, but I have no path to get there. Help me help you, right? That's literally what it comes down to.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. My mind's going a thousand directions. And what I see is, and I've heard where, okay, you take all this time, you do all the work, you do your due diligence, you come up with your values,
Mhm.
then you put them out into your organization, you try to hire people into it, but it's almost as the organizations grow, that the key to it is communication, and the message gets watered down and more watered down, and then you find people just memorizing the core values to not get in trouble.
That's it.
So we'll ask somebody, what's your company's core value, or recite your company's, mission statement, and they'll be like, and you can see them thinking and making sure they don't forget it, but they don't. They're just really trying to memorize it to not forget,
Mhm.
to get in trouble. When I think what I'm hearing you're saying here is that none of those core values will mean anything if you're not coaching them through, and with frequency throughout all of your messaging. And that's hard, you in your emails, and you start your meetings off, and your huddles, whatever you want to call,
Mhm.
on a daily basis, right? I mean, you have to bring them in daily.
Nick Saban has one of my favorite quotes of all
Go ahead.
time, which is, if you're not coaching, you're letting it happen.
So yeah, yeah, I know, right? That you could read a whole book, or you could just read that one little statement. It is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's quite a few of those coaches out there that are just,
Yeah.
you know, really living that creed of, building. One of the things we talk about here as well is winning organizations. I'm a Yankee fan,
Yeah.
and I bring up a slide in one of my presentations where I talk about what does a winning organization look like, and I throw the Yankee logo up, and I get boos out there, of course. And then I throw the logo up of the Red Sox,
Uh,
and people are like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, they're both winning organizations. I don't like the Red Sox, but how did they really build their dynasties over their multiple hundreds of years in both organizations, or
yep.
100 years so?" And it was the Cub way, the same way, Theo Epstein built the Red Sox. He kind of brought it over to the Cubs, and it was within those organizations, the Yankees built all their dynasties from within their farm
Hmm.
systems.
Hmm.
So as a young manager, or as a manager coming in, establishing that foundation, if you will,
Yep.
those cornerstones of that foundation are your values, and then all your habits, or activities are
Yeah.
those little bricks
Yeah.
that kind of fill in those walls.
Yeah.
Uh, Love that.
Well, listen, as a lifelong born and raised Sox fan, uh,
Yeah,
part of me wants to end this thing right now.
yeah, no, no, it's
But at the same time, I will tell you this.
yeah,
This is it's a great example, right? So you and I know we've grown up. It's in our blood, right? When
yeah,
if you're either a Sox fan or you're a Yankees fan, and sometimes it happens in the same family, right? And so we've got people who support one or the other. And what I want people to think about in that scenario, um, especially with that amount of passion in you for these organizations, my first question is, what would it look like if every employee organization cared about your organization as much as they care about one of those teams, right?
unbelievable. Yeah.
So the question is, how do you make that happen?
Hmm.
The reason that they have that passion, if you traced back why these people care about either the Red Sox or the Yankees, I promise you they are rooted in these values that were established
Yeah.
by family, friends, whoever was in that neighborhood growing up, whatever that looked like, it was part of their development.
Yeah.
So why not let them use that passion to toot the horn of your organization like they wear that Yankees cap
Yeah.
during every game they watch, right? It's the same idea rather than going, whoa, 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 whoa. You leave all that passion at the doorstep when you walk here, and now I want you to care about these values. It's
Mm.
literally like asking a Yankees fan to walk into your company and go, you're a Red Sox fan now, okay? You need to
Yeah.
leave that stuff at the door.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah. It's interesting. So kind of a cool story where was John Farrell was a student of my father's at Shore Regional High School right here in New Jersey, was where John Farrell went. My dad was the athletic director. Um, and then we're Yankee fans. But we always talk about, do I like the Red Sox? No. Do I love the Red Sox? No. Do I respect the Red Sox? Yeah, absolutely.
Have to.
Because the Yankees aren't the Yankees without the Red Sox, and Red Sox, and that fanaticism that we have as fans, is what you want to create with as a leader, what you want to create with the people you're trying to bring into the fold, so to speak, fandom.
Yeah.
Um, and Theo Epstein is just a master at it. I just love what he did and
Yeah.
how he did it.
Yeah.
Uh, and I refer to that quite a bit there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus, the logo I'm associated with has the circle, so that's the other
Yeah.
way I tie it in. Is
That's
it's
the
a round
truth.
circle, even though it's an oval. Everybody says no, it's an oval, coach. I'm like, it's in the circle family. So, but
Yes.
but I won't
Yes.
keep you much longer. I think I love. I mean, everything you were saying is spot on, and as you were saying it, I'm thinking of how many people just in the last 4 or 5 weeks or so that I've been talking to about where I usually I put this out 3 or 4 weeks after I record it, but I might have to get this out as soon as I can because it just really touches on everyone understands the value behind having some core values, but then they delay and then like, okay, I'll get to it later. And I'm like, no, you got to do it before you do anything. You have to
Mhm.
have those. And what you did here today has really helped me, give them more of a reason why it's important. To not,
Yeah.
if you don't have these, you're just literally working hard. And what we talk about is you have to learn to work smarter. I
Yeah.
always hate work smarter, not harder, because
Yeah.
it always insinuated in my mind that I was dumb.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
And you have to learn to work smarter. And here's one way to work smarter
Yeah.
is to take what you've put in your book and put it to practice for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I feel like the easiest way or the hook as to why someone wants to try to do this, right, is
Yeah.
that, especially as a leader, the analogy I like to use is if you got in your car and you knew you needed to go somewhere, you set that destination in your GPS and you said, okay, that's where I want to go. Well, you start on your journey and it's a couple hours away, right? And so you're going, well, I need to grab some food. So you veer off the path to stop and get something to eat. And anyone that has had a GPS set in their car and they veer off the path, immediately upon exiting that ramp, the GPS starts going, whoa, 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 ding, 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 time out, time out. You're not headed where you said you wanted to go. Do you want us to reroute you? Right.
Yeah.
And so that idea is exactly what these black sheep values do for you in your life. You can set any goal you want to set, but without these things in place, there's nobody asking you if this is the real direction you want to go or not.
Yeah.
And so setting a destination is being intentional. Knowing every single turn you're going to make along the way is living with deliberate intention. And there is a massive difference between those two things. You can't just set it and forget it. You have got to say, not only am I going to know where I want to end up, I want to know every path I'm doing. I'm taking these turns with deliberate intention. I know I'm going to go get food. I know I'm going to need a bathroom break. I know I'm going to stop at that hotel. And when you start to know those things, you keep yourself so close to the path that you need to be on that you achieve what you need to achieve much faster than allowing these wanderings to happen on and off that direct path between A and B without any accountability whatsoever that you are actually veering off the path. That's what these values do. They provide you the accountability for either you to go, you know what, you're right, I need to get back on path, or you know what, that's not one of my values.
Yeah.
And either of those answers is incredibly valuable to the person who is on that journey.
Yeah, awesome. Great stuff. I mean, and the way you kind of explained it visually, as well as the audible side of it, I think people are going to be able to really get that. I love I use that quite a bit as well as, no one's going to follow somebody. Maybe you'll be interested in following that person if they're going someplace you're interested in.
Yep.
But as soon as you start catching on that they don't really have a plan to get there, people start talking, and next thing you know, there's no one behind you, you know.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so and real quick, so the last part is you have multiple resources. You
Mm-hmm.
have obviously you're a keynote speaker.
Mm-hmm.
You do some consulting. You have Jim Knight
Yep.
as part of your podcast. If you wouldn't mind just letting people know some of, and I'll put it in
Yeah.
the end of it as well. But where are some places that they can find you to get some of your content and even look to book you as a speaker if that's what they're interested in doing?
The easiest way is to go to brantmenswar.com, BrantMenswar. That's going to get you both to the online assessment, to the book, to my speaking, to all the different things that I have there. Jim Knight and I have a podcast, a weekly podcast that we do called Thoughts That Rock, where we interview everybody from CEOs to professional athletes to astronauts to you name it, and we ask them the same question, which is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and how did it change your life?
Yeah,
And so it's a really great 30-40 minute podcast that just gives people a little nugget to chew on, and that's another great resource for you as well. So those are probably the two easiest access points.
great. Yeah, I love it. I really appreciate it. Again, big fans of you and Jim and your books. And I know Jim's got one book out, a new one out, and he's got a couple more coming. And then, do you have anything in the works for yourself, or just busy?
Uh, Believe it or not, we are in discussions right now for a television show. So that is what we're talking on right now.
That's awesome.
It's going to be called Flock My Life,
Okay,
and we're in discussions about a fall pilot, and the show will debut in the spring.
awesome. Well, I'm sure the way you guys do everything is going to be a lot of energy, a lot of fun, and the content will be, useful.
You
There's a lot
bet.
of stuff out there today that's just regurgitated, blah, 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 and just a waste of time. But I know what you guys stand for. And it's definitely something I'll be a fan for sure. And I'll definitely share some of those resources with the people I come across. So
Well, we appreciate you, brother, so much,
yeah.
and anything we can do to help you on your journey, we are
Well, I
team
appreciate it. It's been
Hughes.
an honor. So, Brent Menswar, Coach Hughes here from the Be Best You podcast. And you definitely get some valuable content out of here and get his book, Black Sheep, and get your core values written down. All right, Coach out.